12,000 years ago, something incredible happened on the windy hills of Şanlıurfa. Hunter-gatherer people, long before farming began, before they grew any crops or domesticated any animals, built massive T-shaped stone pillars. And on these pillars, there were strange symbols, a huge H mark between two half-circles. Archaeologists call this place the world's oldest temple. But some researchers are making a much bolder claim. This symbol is not a coincidence. It looks almost exactly like the God sign in the Luwian hieroglyphs thousands of years later. Is this really possible? If it's true, human history might need to be rewritten, and that's exactly why we're looking into it today. Are you ready? What you're about to hear is going to leave some big questions in your mind. Around 9,600 to 9,500 BC, Göbekli Tepe was basically one giant construction site. There were no permanent settlements. People were still hunter-gatherers. They were collecting and grinding wild plants, but systematic farming and animal domestication hadn't started yet. Still, they traveled hundreds of kilometers, carried tons of stone, and built huge structures. The most striking one is Pillar 18 in the enclosure. This pillar is enormous. It has arms, hands, and a belt. It almost looks human. And right on its belt is that famous symbol, an H between two CE-shaped half-circles. Now things get really interesting. From around 2300 BC, the Luwians start appearing in the historical records of Anatolia. In their writing system, the sign for Deus, meaning God, looks exactly like this, an H between two half-circles. There are more similarities. Göbekli Tepe has T-shaped pillars. In the Luwian sign system, T-like symbols can mean door or entrance. Some he-like signs seem to suggest the idea of transition. In 2019, Seyfzadeh and Robert Schoch published a paper and said, Göbekli Tepe may contain the world's earliest known written word, and that word is God. Think about it. This similarity raises an interesting question. Could people here have started encoding the idea of God with symbols 12,000 years ago? What if Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a temple, but humanity's first major spiritual center? Maybe these symbols were the very first traces of a symbolic language that traveled across the same land for thousands of years. Or here's another possibility. The people who built Göbekli Tepe belonged to a much older culture, and the Luwians simply inherited this legacy. Just like how writing traditions in Egypt were preserved for thousands of years, maybe Anatolia carried its own ancient symbols in the same way. Some researchers go even further. They say these signs aren't random. Animals, directions, and the sky seem to work together to tell one story. And that story is connected to the idea of a divine transition. But the story doesn't end here. The same traces appear again in Anatolia thousands of years later, with the Luwians and then the Hittites. So were the Luwians only connected to Göbekli Tepe? Not at all. The Luwians played an important role inside the Hittite Empire. In Hittite texts, this group called Luwian was especially common in western and southern Anatolia. They had their own language, Luwian, and even official Hittite documents used Luwian writing. One of the most striking pieces of evidence is the Bekoy inscription. Found in the 1980s, this long Luwian text talks about kings, wars, gods, and big historical events. Some researchers call it the key to Anatolia's lost history. And here the connection comes back in. If the symbols at Göbekli Tepe really match the Luwian God sign, could these symbols have traveled from Göbekli Tepe through the Luwians all the way to the Hittites? What if this cultural thread stayed alive quietly in Anatolia for 12,000 years? Could the mixed Luwian-Hittite nature of the Hittite Empire actually be a continuation of this ancient symbolic legacy? The Hittites didn't just rule the Luwians, they lived closely with them. Luwian gods even appear in Hittite god lists. Some historians say the Hittite Empire was actually a blend of Luwian and Hittite cultures. But at this point, we have to ask, is this just an interpretation, or could there really be a connection? Let's get back to the facts. Let's take a closer look at the facts. The massive T-shaped pillars of Göbekli Tepe go back about 12,000 years. The dating is very clear. The Luwians only start appearing in records from around 2300 BC. That means there's a huge gap of roughly 7,000 to 8,000 years between them. Because of this big-time difference, most archaeologists see the symbol similarities as coincidence, or they think different societies simply developed similar simple shapes independently. And half-circle shapes like these can be found in many parts of the world. It sounds reasonable at first glance. But the discussion doesn't end there. The 2019 study by Seyfzadeh and Robert Schoch is still being debated. They say the similarity is too strong. It's not that easy to dismiss signs appearing in the same region thousands of years apart as pure coincidence. It naturally makes you stop and think. Right now, one thing is clear. There is no solid proof that the Luwians built Göbekli Tepe, but saying there is no connection at all is also not that simple. Maybe long before writing, people were already trying to express big ideas like God using symbols, and this way of communicating stayed alive in Anatolia for generations through stories and rituals. Göbekli Tepe already showed us something important. Civilization didn't start with farming. In fact, some researchers think it was the other way around. The big gatherings at these structures needed more food, so people started collecting and processing wild grains more intensively. Maybe this process actually helped speed up the birth of farming. In other words, the temples came first. Farming came later. Now, when we add the Luwians and Hittites into the story, the question gets even bigger. Are we still trying to understand that ancient gate of the gods? Or are we just looking at the past through our modern eyes and reinterpreting the signs? Deep in Anatolia, there is still a story waiting to be fully understood. And that story asks one of humanity's oldest questions. Where did we come from? And when did the idea of God first appear in human history? What do you think? Is that He symbol on Göbekli Tepe really a link that reaches the Luwians and Hittites? Or is it all just one big coincidence? Write in the comments, connection exists, or pure coincidence. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. In the next video, we'll take a deeper look at Karahan Tepe, the Taş Tepeler project, or the lost cities of the Luwians. For now, think about those ancient secrets still whispering on the windy hills of Şanlıurfa. Don't let the memory fade. See you.